So, what really makes a modern military? Today, we're going to take a guided tour through a fascinating book on India's military history. We're going to uncover the core ideas and the crucial conflicts that forged one of the world's most powerful armed forces. The author kicks things off with this really cool metaphor, a pilot's Seder burst. It's that first pass over the target, not to destroy it, but just to get the lay of the land. And that is exactly what we're doing right now, a quick, focused flyover to get our bearings. So, what is this mission exactly? Well, the author lays out four very clear objectives for his deep dive into history. Okay, so the mission is basically a four-parter. First, to honor the military's legacy. Second, to create a single, clear story of its conflicts. Third, to give policymakers a nudge to actually learn from the past. And finally, and this is so important, to make the study of war a normal part of talking about India's history. But before you can understand the battles, you've got to understand the fighter. What's the DNA of this force? The author argues its unique character comes from this really interesting mix of historical influences. And that DNA is really a blend of two powerful legacies. On one hand, you have the inheritance from the British era, all that professionalism, structure, and ethos. But on the other hand, you have these deep, deep roots in the subcontinent's own warrior traditions and military strategies. It's that fusion that really defines the force. And man, this new force was thrown into the fire almost right away. The nation's teething years, as the author calls them, were a true trial by fire, shaped by a whole series of intense, formative conflicts. So you've got these three huge challenges right out of the gate. A war literally at birth, a struggle to bring the country together internally, and then the final push to kick out the last bit of colonialism from its soil. Each one of these was absolutely critical in shaping the new republic. The ink on the partition papers was barely dry when the fighting started in Kashmir. In October 1947, tribal raiders who were backed by the regular Pakistan army invaded. They were trying to force the state to join Pakistan. What started as this desperate defense of Srinagar blew up into India's first full-scale war, a conflict that went on for more than a year. At the very same time, there were fires to put out inside the country. The princely state of Hyderabad had these big ideas about staying independent. So in 1948, India launched what it officially called a police action, which is quite a way to put it. It was a swift and successful military operation to bring the state into the fold, a really key moment in forging the Union of India. Then you fast forward to 1961. After years of talks going nowhere, Operation Vijay was launched. This was a full-on combined operation, Army, Navy, and Air Force to liberate Goa from Portuguese rule. And while it was a huge military success, the author notes it had this unintended side effect. It distracted the whole country from a much, much bigger threat that was building up on the northern borders. And that threat? Well, it didn't stay brewing for long. Now we're shifting gears, moving from those early growing pains to the major conventional wars that would go on to define India's borders and its strategic future for decades. The 1960s and early 70s were just dominated by three massive conflicts, and each one was fought in totally different environments, from the highest peaks of the Himalayas to the scorching deserts of Rajasthan. And each one left this profound mark, not just on military strategy, but on the nation's psyche. The 1962 war with China. Boy, was that a wake-up call. The author calls it an ill-fated conflict, and he says it stemmed directly from a failure to really understand China's bigger game plan, its determination to settle border issues from a position of overwhelming strength. It was a brutal lesson, but a vital one. Just 3 years later, it's war with Pakistan again. The author calls this one a baptism by fire for joint operations, for getting the different services to work together. And here's the interesting part. Even though tactically you could call it a stalemate, it's actually seen as a strategic win for India because it completely stopped Pakistan's plans in their tracks, which did a lot to rebuild military confidence. And all that confidence, all those hard-learned lessons, they absolutely paid off in 1971. This was a decisive clinical victory for India. It was this masterfully executed two-front war that led directly to the creation of Bangladesh. The author calls it a brilliant display of joint warfighting, and funny enough, he notes it's India's best documented conflict, probably because we're always a little more eager to write down our wins. Okay, so we've been through all these pivotal wars. What's the common thread here? What's the one big lesson the author thinks ties all of this history together?
Well, the answer really boils down to a single word. It's a term you hear inside the armed forces that kind of unlocks the secret to success in modern war: jointmanship.
So, what the heck is jointmanship? In simple terms, it's all about synergy. It's the integrated planning and use of power across the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. It's not just about them fighting next to each other, it's about weaving their strengths together perfectly in time and space. Think of it like a perfectly coordinated orchestra, instead of three separate bands playing at once. The 1971 victory, that was the ultimate proof that this concept works. And here's the real kicker. This idea of jointness isn't just for soldiers on the battlefield. The author makes this fantastic point that military history itself has to be joint. It has to be woven together with diplomacy, politics, and national strategy. You simply cannot understand a war if you don't understand the statecraft that's driving it.
To close out his introduction, the author shares this incredible quote from Swami Vivekananda that was basically his North Star for this whole project. This idea of just completely immersing yourself in one big, powerful idea, for him, the idea of a joint military history, that's the real path to success and understanding. And that really brings us to the final critical question. We all say that history holds lessons, right? But the author's real challenge to us is how. How does a nation go from just writing down its past to truly, deeply learning from it? And that's the thought we're going to leave you with.